And ladies and gentlemen, we are back into the work today. It's Tuesday, so we've got a 4-day week because of bank holiday Monday, but we have started the day strong. This morning I got prepped a couple of emails to talk to some people, and I've highlighted the next couple of companies that I'm going to approach to see if they want some code reviews doing for them. Kettle apparently doesn't want to boil. Thank you. So I got ahead on that this morning. I started doing some programming, so I've worked on activating pipelines now, so you can set a flag. I've been trying to figure out how to do this actually. Basically, you set a flag to true or false, whether or not you want it to be active, and then based on the pipeline state, I'm controlling whether or not it's actually going to run or not, basically. So you can set it to active even if it's incomplete. The status will still be incomplete and it won't run. And then like that, basically. So that's what I'm currently working on. I've done all of the interfaces, i.e. the API endpoints, and the Swagger files have been published out so that I can write my automation tests. I've also created the interfaces into the repositories so that I can mock them in the automation tests and then make sure that they're being called. I'm going to write all those automation tests and then I'm going to implement it out like I normally do. And we're going to make we're going to have some great progress, ladies and gentlemen. That being said, I'm trying my hardest not to spend all day doing programming, although it is going to be a weird day. I'm going to a .NET meetup thing in town about, what's it about? It's about an introduction to railway-oriented programming, which is a way of programming with functional programming, specifically F#, but that's going to go into ways that you can bring that kind of thing into C# world, which is going to be good. Looking forward to that. I'm going to try my best to talk to people. I've got to start doing some networking. I'm hoping that the fact that I'm at home all day, driving myself mad by only listening to my own voice, means that I'm going to be more interested in talking to other people. But it's one of the things that I really need to combat is my inability or how difficult I find it talking to random people about stuff. It's going to be one of my biggest flaws in life. It's one of my biggest weaknesses, to be honest with you, and I've got to try and tackle it. But yeah, because I'm going to that later tonight, I'm not going to be, my tea, I'm not going to be going out for my evening walk, although I did go for my morning walk to get myself in the zone. So because of that, I'm going to be working all the way through, and I'm trying my hardest not to just do programming. I'm trying to look at all of the other things that I also have to do and start making headway on that. So that includes sending emails to prospect clients, but it also includes some of the other work that I need to do vis-a-vis investors and business plans and stuff. As unproductive as that feels, I need to do it. I actually have like legitimate forms and applications I need to fill out, but I also need to figure out effectively where I want to be, or where I expect, like a roadmap kind of thing, where I expect to be over the next couple of months with RadSpider, with Varialis, and so I can figure out A, forecasting, and B, whether or not I'm on track, whether or not at what point I need to decide to change track if I need to, all that kind of shit. So once I've made my cup of tea, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to do that. I'm trying to keep it lively by jumping between tasks. That's my plan for the day. We're getting a little bit of drizzle, boys and girls. I was like, it smells funny. It smells like rain. I looked out, it's raining. I was going to longboard in. It's supposed to be hot. It's like on the verge of, I bet if it rains, it's torrential. It's drizzling at the moment, but it's on the verge of thunderstormy weather. And I was hoping it would stay dry so I could take my longboard into town. I may have to bus, unfortunately. Just had lunch, so I came upstairs to do a little bit of work. Carrying on doing some programming before I start doing some networking stuff. Knock on the door, answer it. Guy goes, "Is the homeowner about?" I'm like, "You cheeky little shit." What are you trying to fucking say? Yes, you're looking at him, alright, dickhead. Trying to flog me some bullshit fascias or some shit. Don't need it, mate, so deal with it. I've figured out I've implemented it all now, and I've got 3 automation tests failing, and they are for something that I said to myself, that's how I want it to work. And I'm trying to figure out whether or not that's how I want it to work. And it all kind of comes down to how I want this kind of like activated flag to interact with whether or not you're eligible to be activated. So could you have activated an invalid pipeline? More to the point, could you activate an invalid pipeline? And if you tried to do that, what would the API tell you? Would it tell you it had done it, set an activated flag to true, but the pipeline itself is invalid, so therefore it won't actually run? So the whole state of the pipeline, even though you set active to true, so is active like an on or off thing? If you turn on a light switch, right? If this light switch here is basically my thing, right? If that light bulb there didn't work, this would still tell me that it's on, right? It won't stop me from pressing it up. It won't go, oh, by the way, no, you can't do that because the light bulb's broken. In the same way, when I initially created the interfaces for this Swagger API and wrote my automation tests, I said that you would get a unprocessable entity error if you tried to activate a pipeline that wasn't ready to be activated. And I have that. If you don't have a pipeline, if you have a workflow but not a pipeline, i.e. your pipeline is undefined, you'll get an unprocessable entity. The question is, do I want to extend that to if it's invalid? And in which case, how do I go about doing that? In fact, I've got an idea. I know how to do it. Should we do it? I think that makes sense. I think that's the best way of going about it. This is one of them things where I wrote the automation tests. I thought about it when I wrote the automation test, and I was like, we'll think about it when we've finished. In an ideal world, I want this, but if it's really complicated, which I thought it might be, then it is mildly complicated because I'm not actually updating the domain object. I'm updating the database, a flag in the database. In a world where I was straight up updating the database, no, it's not impossible, because it's basically just a test of whether or not you're in a deactivated mode. If you're not deactivated, then you can't be set to active. Okay, so the question is then, if you're active, bearing in mind you can't go from inactive, you can't go from invalid to active. If you did something that changed your active state, if you did something, so while this was on, I put a light bulb in, would this flick off? Or while it was on, if I took the light bulb out, would that switch off? That's more to the point. So if you invalidated your pipeline while it was active, what would happen? Bearing in mind, if it was invalid, you couldn't turn it to active. I feel like if you updated a step in such a way that made it inactive, it should deactivate the... That's the thing, right? I've kind of almost got one rule for another. Because why do I have that validation step if I'm okay with you making your own pipeline invalid even when it's active? If I'm okay with that, i.e. I'm not forcing you to deactivate it before you make modifications, then why am I not okay with you just setting it active when it's invalid? I'm flip-flopping. This is one of those scenarios where I'd like to ask... I'd solve this problem much quicker if I could ask someone. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? Yagni. That's the answer to this, is you do the one that requires the least amount of work. So you can set an invalid step to active. It won't change the state of your account. So the switch will stay on even if you've pulled out the light bulb. If someone uses this API and says that's weird, I can change it. And then make it be a bit more violent with its validation. But I don't know if I'm going to need that, so let's not do it. Why spend the time? Why spend the time and money doing that now when I can do it later? I mean, it's not impossible to do it. It means moving logic about how that object works somewhere else, or updating the value differently. And I don't want to do either of those two things. So otherwise, time to be complete on that one little bit adding this flag in and setting it in the database, time for completion on that is less than 4 hours. 3 and a bit hours. And I've got it sorted, less than 3.5 hours even, which is good. I am updating, I've got to update the gets so that they actually get the data out, but that shouldn't take me too long. So that's pretty good turnaround for a piece of work of this like size, quote unquote. It's getting pretty warm, but now I've got my fan on in my room and the window's open. But I think it's time for a cup of tea, and then I'm going to look at doing something, not programming for a bit. I'm moving downstairs onto my laptop, guys. It's so warm upstairs, man. Whew. So that's enough programming for the day. Let's get on to, what are we going to get on to, boys? Some forecasting so that I can do my application thing. I always start to lose a bit of productivity around 4 o'clock. It's normally the time I go out for a walk, but because I'm going out into town later, I'm not going to. I'm also going to come back up here to do a bit more programming. Hopefully it's cooled down just a tad. With the extended weekend, I felt relatively unproductive for a little bit. So I am trying to just stay, like, do things that are, that make me feel productive, aren't necessarily productive, if that makes sense. So programming isn't necessarily the best thing I should be spending my time on at the moment, but it is in a sense that it makes me feel more productive, and that therefore encourages me to do more work. But because it's 4 o'clock and I'm not sure what, I'm trying to get over this bump, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my bag ready for later and watch a YouTube video or something, and then get back into some work. I think I've got to make a snap call on whether or not to longboard, basically by at the latest 5:30. That's like the last time I can go out and get a bus. Otherwise I'll set off here on a longboard at about just after 6. So big advantages to taking the old longboard. Hey girl, how you doing? To be honest, she does need a bit of TLC. She needs a bit of, I think she needs more bearings. I think all the bearings are getting a bit battered. I've checked all the battery health and whatnot and the motor health using the old computers and stuff. But yeah, it's started to be a little bit creaky. There's a couple of noises it makes every now and again, which I'm not too impressed about. And I believe they're all bearing-based issues. So I may have to order some new bearings. That's the reason I run the street wheels so much more than the tyres, because the bearings and the tyres, I know for a fact, aren't good. So sad times, really, to be honest. Sad times. I say that, what I mean is the bearing and the gears aren't good. Ooh, £42. Ooh, for some nice ceramic water resistant ones. Or £20. Wait, hang on. £36 for oh, the problem is there's 2 sets of fucking wheels, isn't there? There's the tyres. Oh, god damn it. That's just for 1 set, you know? Not, frick me. Got 2 sets of wheels, man. I only really care about the tyres, to be honest with you. If I could run the tyres all day, every day, I would. So, anyway, I'm not getting them yet. I don't need them yet. That is a luxury, if I ever have heard one. And then, yeah, you've got the drive gears. I think it's the drive gears, the problem. Anyway, work. You know what, fam? We have absolutely decimated it today. We've done really well. I've finished off the user story I was working on to activate pipeline statuses and whatnot. I've including all of the mapping all the way up to the API gateway, updated all of the gets so that they're, and the GraphQL query so it's getting the right data out, and all of that stuff. It's Gucci. So that whole thing took me 4 hours and 45 minutes to do basically 2 actions. A semi-decent chunk of work in a day. That's good stuff. That is good progress. Tomorrow we've got to implement a saga, which I should have done earlier, to be fair, to watch the state. You're not going to rain, are you, you son of a bitch, because it's too late for me to change my mind now. So arguably when I've been doing all this, I haven't done everything because the sagas aren't implemented properly, slash at all. But that's my next user story. It's fine. I've put on the next user story, and then what I'll be doing is using the Saga to automatically kick off the next microservice, and then this means after this I can jump onto the next microservice, which is good stuff. We've made some cracking progress. I'm well chuffed, ladies and gentlemen. And now it is time to head on out. We are going on into town. We need to know what the weather's like. 20 degrees and partly cloudy. It's currently 23. Question is, do we wear a hoodie? I'm taking my longboard, so I'm going to be cold. But it's normally hot when we get there, so... This is a bit of an economy run into town this evening. I may have overestimated how much battery I had, so coming back is going to be a bit of fun, especially considering that on the way back it's mostly uphill. So I'm being frugal with the battery on the way there. Probably going to have to roll eco on the way back, but I reckon I can just about do it. It's really awkward overtaking cyclists because I'm not going very quick. I haven't got much battery, I don't know if you can see that. But so I either hang behind them and then lose momentum and then therefore battery, or I overtake them really slowly, or I go too fast and then risk running out of battery even quicker. Here we go. I used the old take up less air resistance trick by bending down really small and look like a right twat. I had to concede some good headway there because I definitely don't have enough battery to go up this hill. So I could walk it up myself, but I put it in the slowest possible mode and let it go up the hill on its own. Come on, buddy. Steer a little bit though, boy, you're gonna go in the hedge. Go that way. Go. Come on, boy. It's off. Woo, I'm still recording. You can now add some raindrops onto my woes, ladies and gentlemen. But from here on in, it's been a gradual incline up the path, but from here on in, it's properly uphill. So I'm probably going to be using fast anyway. Do I have enough to get me back? We'll never know. We'll find out though. So I have no interest in getting stuck in the rain carrying this thing. So we're in fast, gradual acceleration, push kick starts, so save battery on kickoff. And we gun it from here on in. We just gotta slowly get to speed. It's acceleration that kills you, not speed. I made it, ladies and gentlemen. Only just, but I made it. It kicked me down into eco once. Because if it gets to like below 5%, it'll drops the power rate. But I got back, didn't get too wet. I also had a semi-decent amount of battery, although I did drop the controller outside the house. And then the on and off button fell out, so I had to fix that. That poor boy is definitely due some maintenance, poor thing. I may have to schedule some time in this weekend to give it a good old clean, you know? And then I potentially may swap the wheels over and then roll from there. And then think about getting new wheels next year, because they do a smaller off-road tyre, which I think will be like the perfect compromise. Because I like the tyre for run everywhere, but it's slower and uses so much more battery power than the wheels, and they've got like a slightly smaller one with like it's a bit more like a pram tyre than a fucking car tyre. So anyway, bedtime. F# and or functional programming has always been something that's interested me. I like keep a close eye on it to see where it's going and what's happening with it, and all of the things that come from F# to C# as well. The thing is, that talk yesterday was all about how you can basically take more of F# and put it into C#, and it was just it was a mess. It was a hot mess, and doesn't really give the advantage. Like, you see, I've always said that like I will use F# when I hit a scenario where F# makes sense, and I'm yet to find that. I'm yet to find a real life situation where it makes sense over object oriented code, and therefore I've never really done it. There's a chance that it might become useful when I do when I have to spin up my Docker containers. There's a chance it's usable there, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's a really cool tool. It's a bit like Prolog and logic-based programming languages. They're really cool tools. They're just, I've never found a situation where I've thought, yeah, this makes sense over object-oriented. And I 100% appreciate that. That's mainly because I've trained myself to think in an OO world, in an OO like frame of mind. So if you try and solve problems with OO logic, functional programming doesn't really make sense. But So that's where I'm at. It was an interesting talk. It was about railway style programming, where you basically have 2 tracks. You build up a railway with a load of functions, and then if you turn to a failure, it drops through to the failure track. Interesting, but like I say, it's one of them things where it demos really well. And to be fair, that's a very valid criticism of Microsoft in general, is they're really good at making things really easy to demo. So you're like, yeah, look, 1 click, bang, there you go, we've deployed to Azure. we've spun up with 2 command line commands. We've created an entirely new MVC project and deployed it to Azure on an AMP service. Cool. But because to do all of that stuff, you've made it more complicated to do other things, which you actually want to do, you know? I think that's one of the things with F# is it's really easy to spin up a really cool dumbass demo where it doesn't do anything, you know? But it's entirely other ballpark to actually do something of value in it. And obviously you can do things of value in it. I've just never seen that. So I find it difficult to map the problems I'm solving onto it. That makes sense? Otherwise it was a pretty good talk. And I did get back on my longboard, just about. Oh, I said that last night, didn't I? So the board did 2 runs to town and back, which is about 20 miles, which is a long ass way. I mean, one of those legs was very eco mode, but one of them was like using GT mode and really gunning it. So I'm pretty proud of it. I reckon if you're willing to run that thing in eco all the time, you could do 30 mile easy. Well, not easy, difficultly. If you did it like an economy run eco, you could do 30 mile on it. But yeah, 20 miles, that's not bad. I forgot how far it was, to be honest with you, when I was like, oh, let's not bother charging it. I'm trying to be clever by not overcharging the battery, since I don't really ride it that much. Just received a really interesting email I'm trying to figure out how to respond to. Otherwise, I spent a lot this morning finding more people to try and pitch to. And I have been I finished off the work I was doing yesterday, so that's all merged now, and I've now started to do the Saga stuff. The Saga stuff's relatively straightforward, but I've just been knocked off track thinking about this other thing now. I've lost a bit of momentum. There's an interesting balance, I guess, that I'm trying to strike up between like focus and then keeping your options open. Like, there's a lot to be said. There's like a lot of value in focusing on a single thing and just diving everything at it. Like, if I spent my entire time programming Red Spider, like, it would probably be finished before I ran out of money, right? But obviously I need to spend some time trying to make some money so that I don't run out of money. And then how much time and effort do I spend on those things while they don't make me money? So obviously if I was to get a client for code reviews as a service, that will become like effectively the #1 focus, although I wouldn't be doing it all the time. But as soon as it came up, it would be the #1 focus. But while it's not making me money, how much time and effort should I spend on trying to continue to sell it versus pivoting versus offering other things as well? Because you kind of don't want to dilute yourself too far. But yeah, also I feel like this is one of the things where you just kind of need to get a ball rolling. It doesn't matter what ball it is, just get it rolling, and then eventually that ball will roll into other balls. Or that ball can then consume your other balls as well. Balls, mate, balls. But yeah, I should be spending, god damn it. I need to get back into some programming so that after dinner I can work on, when it gets hotter, and I don't want to work in my office anymore, I can work on some of the more admin-y things. Right, let's get some focus down. Let's put some headphones on, lad, and burn through some programming. Get motivated playlist on and zone out. I went out for my walk earlier. I took Laura's umbrella with me. She is going out for a meal tonight with some workmates, so it's just little old me at home. 200 degrees for 30 minutes. Boys, pop you on there, boy. Cool. And And it's absolutely tipping it down now. I dodged the worst of it. It was basically just like really light drizzle. I wouldn't have taken an umbrella if I wasn't listening to a podcast while I walked. But real talk, something that's annoying is you can't like close sagas in mass transit unless you use the fucking bullshit one that I don't like. So I've basically got the scenario where you can delete your what's it called? You can delete your pipelines. You can like delete it and put in another one. The problem is that your pipeline itself doesn't have an ID because you only have one registered to your account. So you basically inherit the ID of the thing it's registered to, and that thing can't be deleted. So I was using that as my ID for my Saga, but my Saga is being persisted after the delete, which is fine. That's fine, but it means that I can't recreate it again, because the thing that creates it sometimes is creating it and sometimes is... So like the pipeline created event isn't always creating the Saga, sometimes it's reinitializing it effectively, but mass transit won't let me you can't initialize a Saga twice, so it's throwing exceptions. I don't know how to get around that. God damn it, ladies and gentlemen, I've found it. It's this. Turns out what you have to do is you need to change the context of the Saga. You've got to Google a very specific thing to find the Stack Overflow question. In fact, I'm going to upvote that bitch because that is really useful. You have to cast it to, or if you can't cast it, so what you need to do is you need to get the consume context, convert that into a Saga consume context, which it is really underneath, it's just not based on what you initially pass into it. And then there's a method on there called set completed, and that removes it from the fucking Saga repository. Hey, I wish I knew that a long time ago. God damn it! You know when you're cooking frozen chips, right, and you put some on the plate, and there's no way of dividing what you've got left into a portion that's large enough, and B, a second portion. So you just put it all on and then cook way too many chips. I feel like that's what I've done. I'm going to be honest, I've probably spent too much time doing programming today, but I've made a lot of progress. I'm basically ready to merge this Saga story. So it's literally, once I've done this, I've got some planning to do to kick up the next microservice. I think quite a lot of it is going to be still centered in this service. So I've got one more thing to do, which is effectively turn these steps into Docker images. I always get the fucking words mixed up for Docker stuff. So my basic plan is to turn these pipelines into an image that's going to form part of another thing that's used from another service. That's how I'm going to get data across from one service to the other. Because I was trying to figure out how to do this in a way where the service that's running and spinning up these Docker instances spins up the pipeline without knowing too much about the pipeline, because I don't think it's necessarily the other service's job to deal with that, but it has to be. But yeah, so I just need to figure out how I'm going to go about this next little bit, but then we're sorted, and then I should be working on that and also doing some other businessy stuff. I need to talk to people. I kind of need like advice on how I should be spending my time, to be honest. Because I know what Laura's opinion is, and I know my opinion feels slightly different. So I feel like I need an actual person, you know? Ben? Do you reckon Ben? I feel like I should spend more time on RadSpider, because RadSpider is the bread and butter, and I have enough money to do it. But I should really get other revenue streams going, especially if those revenue streams help me then later sell RadSpider. how much time do you take away from Spider to do that? That's the question. Okay, so I'm at the point now where I'm trying to plan out how to kick off, basically how to kick off these pipelines. So what I'm expecting to do is to boot them in Docker instances in the cloud, and then basically host that pipeline as a sub-step in a larger image, I guess. But what's difficult is that the pipelines are to handle the source code, right? So the initial, the purpose of these pipelines is basically to process a repository, a code repository. I don't have that yet. I was kind of hoping that I'd be able to create an image. I'm thinking as I say this out loud, create an image which is effectively a pipeline that would act on some source that it's not been given yet. Another service is going to inject that in, don't worry about it. Somewhere else is going to happen. This is effectively a sub-step in another image. You want an image, but I want to put you somewhere where I can then access you. So what I was initially bounding the idea around was effectively programmatically creating Docker files and smashing them into blob storage. And I'm like, that's a bit filthy. Like, it's possible, it'll work, but it's a bit filthy. So I could in theory do that, and that would work out great. But what I would much prefer to do is have it, because then the other service is then going to have to take that Docker file, wrap it in another file, effectively. So copy it from one file to another. Working with files is just a bitch as well, because I'm doing this all in the cloud on not real servers. So I don't have a fucking file system like you'd expect. So take that file, download that file, put it inside another file, basically by string manipulation and file manipulation. And then that other file then creates a Docker image. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create an image for each snapshot that I'm taking. A snapshot isn't the branch though, it's the pull requests. So I take a snapshot from each update to the pull request. That snapshot is then created as like version 1, version original. And then what I do is I then take that and then create 1,000 other versions of it in the usual manner. I know how that bit's going to work. I know how taking the image, giving it the source code from a different service is going to be put in the source code. It's then going to be run to make sure that it's all okay. Then as soon as that's finished, we'll then pass it on to something else. Something else will then manipulate all of the stuff it needs to do to create all the other versions. It'd be much better if I could just have a base image kind of so if I could put this pipeline in the middle of a container, but not run it. Like the problem is, at the moment, I'm running build to fucking smash the container into a container repository. I'm running build, and then it's not working because I've ran build, it's then trying to run, and the pipeline's running against the code, so it's effectively trying to compile the code that's not there, because I haven't injected it yet. I don't want this service to be responsible for injecting that, because A, that then basically turns this service into the next service, which it shouldn't be, and B, it isn't running on a base that it should run on, if that makes any kind of sense. So I then have to roll back into the previous microservice, so then that can go and access like a default branch, a master branch, and download that instead of a pull request. Just so that I can run this against it, but then I'm gonna have to swap out the code anyway. So that's not a good go either. Because it'll have the wrong code in, because it won't have the right fucking thing. God damn it. And basically what I want to do is, by the time you've finished building your pipeline, an automatic process will pick it up and go, okay, right, that's been finished. smash that into a repository, and then inform the other microservice that it's there, and the other microservice can go and get it whenever it wants to. And it's just kind of like using this storage, which is either going to be a blob or in a container repository, fucking whatever the fuck it's called. And then it's going to get it and then run it with there. It's going to put it into what it knows about. Fuck. God diggity damn doodle. And then that will basically go off to the other service, which is go get the snapshot from blob storage because it's already there, go get the container from there, build it up in the way that it needs to build it up, smash in all the stuff it needs to do all of the work it's got to do, and then roll. I can't figure out how to do it. Whoops. This video is getting really long as well. I apologise. What I shouldn't have done was carry on the video yesterday, knowing that, well, I didn't know that Laura wasn't going to be here, in fairness. Not all night, but you know what I mean, not this late. We thought she'd be coming to home to have dinner. So in my defence, I wasn't aware I'd go on my own for this long and then therefore have enough time to ramble as much as I have. Alright then guys, Laura is finishing up and I said I'd give her a lift. So that's what I'm going to do. I've figured it out. I've hit a minor roadblock, which I was good at hitting away, and that is that I'm trying to run builds against something that doesn't have a access to the private NuGet packages that I'm using. So what I was doing was cannibalizing the microservices itself. It won't build up the repository. It can't access the NuGet repo. So I need to figure out how I'm going to do that, basically. It's a problem I was going to have to solve. I was hoping, dumbly, that it would work, but obviously not, because it's not running under my context anymore, it's running in a Docker context. So if it didn't work now, it wasn't going to work when I put it into the cloud. So yeah, that is an interesting problem to solve, because I've got to get personal access, some kind of authentication to the NuGet package thing, which is probably going to be through a personal access token. And I need to float that around safely. It's going to be fucking hoot. I've got ways that all my microservices can encrypt things, and then so they know how to encrypt and decrypt things, because they all know the secrets and shit. But that isn't like effectively the Docker container has to be able to do it at some point. Does each Docker image know how to unencrypt these things? That's going to get a bit wet and wild, isn't it? I'm just waiting for Thingy to tell me where she wants picking up. Cool. I'm going to head off, ladies and gentlemen, unless something crazy happens on the way to or from picking up Laura. I'll see you tomorrow. Sorry this video is so long. I'll catch you later.